We're still going to make one more part, but we're going to assemble what we have first. So to do that, instead of going to part, we're going to go to assembly. It's a different file type. You should have the word place. If it says place from Content Center, you have to click the down arrow and choose place instead. Okay? And we're going to choose each of these things. I'm just going to click on the top one, hold down Shift, and click on the bottom one and say open, and click on my screen once. It'll adjust for how big it is. I'm going to click a second time, right click, and say OK. Now I don't need this piece, so I can select and delete it. I don't need this piece, I can select and delete it. And the other pieces are about what I want. So I have the left and the right, there's the top, there's my two support rails there and there. That's for the tray, and that's backwards, but that's okay, we can work around that. I'm going to start by putting the top onto the sides, which, well, it's probably not the way that we're going to do in the shop, but that's okay. I'm going to say constrain, and this is symmetrical. It doesn't really matter, but I want to make it look about right. So I'm going to click the top of this, and I'm going to hold down Shift, hold down my mouse wheel. I'm going to move my mouse towards the top of my screen here, and I can click on the bottom half of this lid. Hit apply. I'm going to choose flush. So that was mate. That's making two surfaces touch each other. Flush is going to make two surfaces point the same direction. Apply. And here I want this and this surface to be facing the same direction, share the same plane. I'm going to say apply. I need those 3 dimensions before I can move to the next thing. I'm going to switch back to mate again, and I want that surface to be touching. Again, hold down Shift, hold down your mouse wheel, move your mouse down. I want the underside of that surface to be touching the top of this surface. Hit apply. Zoom out, roll your mouse wheel, zoom back in a little bit. I want this surface and this surface to be flush. So they should share the same surface and point the same direction. Hit apply. At this point I can just grab this corner of my wheel or my cube, and I want this and this to be flush with each other. So that's flush. Hit apply. For my supports here, I want the top of this that's flat to be mated to the underside of this lid. So I hold down Shift, hold down my mouse wheel, move my mouse up, bring it back where I can see it. I'm going to click on the underside of the lid. Hit apply. Go to flush, click on the front of this rail, and it doesn't matter which one of these you click on, one of these, say apply. Switch back to mate, click on this surface. We want it to be touching this surface. Doesn't matter where you click, because it's going to choose that entire surface. Say those two surfaces are touching. Select apply. We'll do the same thing with the other side. So there's the flat part. I'm going to say that should be touching. Hold down Shift, hold down my mouse wheel, move my mouse up, the underside of this. Apply. Switch to flush. Select the front of this surface, the front of this stool, say apply. And we're going to switch back to mate. I want this surface to be touching this surface. This is the fun part for me. I know you guys are probably going to struggle if this is the first time you've assembled something together, but once you get used to it, it's kind of like playing a video game. You want to see how fast you can get at it. Okay. Then I want to attach this tray into my tray sides here. So I'm going to say that this whole top surface should be touching that part there. Say apply. I want a flush constraint with this. Let me zoom out so you can kind of see what we're doing here. This surface and this surface, so it's pushed all the way in. And now this next step is going to be a little weird, so I have to hit cancel. And see how this can kind of pass through it right now? I need to make sure those are not touching yet. We'll hold down shift and rotate. I have to say that that should be touching that other edge here. Apply. So now if I zoom out and kind of rotate around, that should make sense. That's where it should be. Okay, let's go back to constrain. I want this surface here to be touching this one. Let's say apply. I want this to be flush with this. Apply. And notice this can still move up and down. I could choose to make the top of this touching the top of that, the bottom of this touching the top of that, or I'll show you another way, which is way easier for other kinds of projects. Go to flush and choose the top of this surface and the thing that's right across from it and say those are the same height and apply. Now because this is all assembled together and this is all assembled together, it's a lot easier to just go to mate, choose one of these surfaces and one of these surfaces and say apply. Now notice that's upside down. That's not what I wanted. But I didn't freak out. It's still okay. Let's switch to flush. And this side over here needs to be flush with this side over here. So notice that the arrow, the vector that I have for this side is going to be pointing toward this one, even though it's flush, which means to make that true, it has to flip the whole part upside down. That's what I wanted in the first place. That's perfect. We're going to say apply, and this looks good except my tray's on top of my box. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to drag. Uh-oh. What happened here? Okay. I guess I have to drag a different part. It's going to be easier if I right-click something like the top of this and select grounded. That means that this and whatever it's attached to won't be able to move. That's stuck in place. I am going to kind of drag this down to the bottom. I'm going to rotate where I can see the bottom and say that that surface is flush with that surface. And you're going to say, Mr. Thorne, that doesn't look right. I haven't hit apply yet. We're going to offset that, and we need to figure out what kind of an offset we need. So I'm just looking at this masonite part, and I want it to be above the top of this arc here. So if I type in 1 inch, that's not going to be enough. I can say 1.5, and that, I believe, is right where we want it. Or, well, it's okay. It could be better. So what's better than 1.5? Let's try 1.5. Let's say 1.625. Right, that's 5/8. 1 5/8 inches up leaves just a little bit of surface there, and that's looking all right. Cool. Now, I said there's one more part that we were going to make, but I wanted to get this assembled first. We're going to make that part in the next video. Save this, and we can just call this Footstool.